Hello, folks, and welcome to the show tonight. What we are going to be doing is inking a couple of the last bonus cartoons for the Noah's Archipelago anthology I'm working on. I know it's super light with the blue pencil underdrawing, but that's what we've got. And I'm using a dip pen. I think I'm actually going to try this glass pen, which I got a while back, because hey, there's no nib to get all clogged up. And what I learned last night is shot glass is awesome for pouring the ink into. So we will get that going. And let's get started. So in this, let's go test. Oh yeah, that's a great line. Um, In this particular cartoon, this is going towards the very front of the book. And um, in fact, this is going to be on the epigraph page. So I found a couple quotes about a man being the king in his own castle. I thought, well, Noah likes to think that, but he really isn't. So we've got his bratty kid, Ursula, going to be thwacking him with rolled up wrapping paper, and the wife is headed out to the salon, and the baby's barfing on him and whatnot. Yeah, you know what? The glass pen I think we'll try later because it's a little too thin of a line. And obviously, I can't really press down on the nib to make it go fatter, right? So, yield and dip nibs work. 'Cause that, of course, the tip is actually finer than the glass pen, but I can push on it and get some different line weights, and that's what we want. So, I mean, I'm sure you can push on the tip of a glass pen nib, but it probably isn't going to go very well for you. So, we're going to get some baby barf going in Noah's hair. Baby Valerie, well, one would get the impression she does this on purpose. But of course, one can never prove that. So, uh, later I'll put some tonality into Noah's hair because normally this comic is done in Procreate and it's in full color. So we have a few variations, but I thought for the anthology, it would be fun for the bonus cartoons to all have this more old school black and white look. But then that does mean I have to kind of be creative with showing how Noah has variation in his hair color, but here we go. As my brother once said, baby barf is always funny as long as it's not landing on you. So it is kind of a standard gag in this comic. Although I'm trying to think, well, since New Year's, basically, I've been going with a plot line where Ursula is interacting with one of my other characters from my other comic, Ricky B, the rock and roll rat, and nobody really believes her. Um, So we haven't really seen her baby sister Valerie barfing on Noah for a while, but I'm sure that'll be making a comeback real soon. I have to turn this upside down to get the line direction I want. Oof, oof. Little Valerie has very curly hair, just like her old man. Particularly, because she's way too young to get a blowout. So, Normally, I don't start in the middle of a page. I kind of go top left down to bottom right, but the top left's going to be blank. So, you know, after I kind of get this section of Noah done, I'm going to go over, draw Ursula, and work my way back. So, and I'm sure this is not the correct way to hold a baby, but it's the cartoon universe. So, let's maybe draw a little bit of baby barf dribbling down the side of his shirt as well. She got him all over. All right, let's deal with the other little brat, Ursula. We finish this particular cartoon, and I've got one. Well, actually, I have two more for the book, but one more that I'm going to ink tonight. And then we're going to break out the sketchbook and some markers and do some St. Paddy's Day leprechaun and green beer related quick doodle sketches for the rest of the stream. But first things first. These big motion lines I'll get later with a big fat nib, but for now, I'll stick to the finer nib and do some details that way. And we are kind of running out of paper down here, which would be my own fault, but I'll either touch that up in Photoshop at the when everything else in the book is done, or well, actually, I'll just touch it up in Photoshop when everything else in the book is done. It's a bit of an odd angle because obviously Ursula's taking a baseball swing, so she's kind of leaning back and shifting her weight. This is based on, I did find reference photos of little leaguers to use for the pose reference. And, I mean, hey, if I waited a couple more months, I guess I could hang around in my local parks and take my own reference photos. But, uh, that tends to be frowned upon. I, and I would feel weird about like going watching someone else's little league game and drawing pictures of the kids and all this. Like, just avoid all that and ask Mr. Google. As far as I know, you are allowed to use pose references. I'm making it my own, etc. So, Ursula's hair is not super dark, but she's not blonde either. She's a little bit ginger. And that's making it look kind of dark, but I think what I usually do afterwards is go around with the fatter nib and thicken up the lines. Um, Although my fattest nib would be way too heavy for that, but I will thicken up the outlines, and then that's gonna instantly make these lines look less dark. So, plus they'll give more definition to the two ponytails. So we will go back to working on Noah in the middle here, and then we'll get Ruth, and then we'll get the big fat nib and do some of that thickening. I feel like this pose for Valerie says, "Tell everyone I don't have kids without telling everyone I don't have kids." Pretty sure that's not how you're supposed to hold a baby. But was that? I have done some Noah stuff on stream before the Fridays became the Ricky B. Rat drawing show. I think I'm going to actually start a Noah specific live stream in April because I have a couple ideas for projects involving Noah that I could do, dip pens or fine line markers or whatever. So we will be seeing more of this dude on stream in just a couple weeks, but let's add some tone and tone difference into Noah's hair. His bangs are, he's let the bangs go gray as well as the little bit tuft over in front of his ears, to make him look distinguished. But it's a mix of dark browns and kind of burgundies. So get a couple different shades going here. Excuse me. Now let's get Noah's wife, Ruth, who is leaving him to his devices and his offspring as she heads to the salon with her mother. Just realized in the underdrawing I forgot to give Ruth eyebrows. Well, we'll fix that in a moment. A bit of a unibrow there. I'm just going to draw a little note up here that says eyebrow. When I scan it, this top half inch is going to get cut off anyways. So, and actually, probably her hand with the keys might get. I may have to, because I forgot about the fact that I can only scan up to about there. This is a 9x12, so anyways, I may have to do 2 scans, this side and that side, and, you know, stitch them together in Photoshop. My bad, but, whatever. We'll fix it later. As the common refrain was back in my music biz days, "Fix it in the mix." Now, granted, you're not supposed to fix in the mix. Mix engineers get very pissed off at you if you have that attitude, but a lot of people have the "fix it in the mix" attitude, and not gonna lie, I kinda do too. Of course, that was easy for me to say. Long, long ago when I did music stuff, I recorded and mixed my own crap, so, you know, it's gonna be me fixing it either way, so fix in the mix, fix it beforehand, whatever. Especially when I was, mixing things, Pro Tools, then it really didn't matter versus if I was mixing in a studio, but anywho, that's stories for some other day. Ruth usually has heavy eye makeup. we'll do that. I guess before I draw her purse, I gotta draw her hand with her key so we know who goes where. It's funny, the ubiquitous car key is kind of, I mean, my car doesn't have a key anymore, it just has a fob, but fobs kind of, they look weird if you drew them in this context. It's like, oh, she could be holding anything, right? Whereas the key, we all understand what the key is. So even if it's not really realistic for modern cars. So, anyways. Hmm. For whatever reason, Ruth's just carrying her jacket, not wearing it. Gives her what's the old acting saying, a bit of business with the hands. So, I'll worry about Ursula's shadow when I get back there. We won't get too much. I don't normally, I mean, if I'm painting or whatever, it's different. But on line drawings, I've kind of developed a style where I'll put shading and contouring in the clothing and whatnot, but the people are flat, just outlines. I don't know. I guess it's a stylistic thing, but it's something I kind of started doing at some point. Um, I do the comic. I'm currently, well, I've been doing it since the inception of it. in 2022, I do it in Procreate. I'm actually planning to switch to Clip Studio Pro at some point this year just because Procreate doesn't make a desktop version. I'm really sick of punching over my iPad for 3 or 4 hours at a time. Whereas if I did the comic digitally in Clip Studio, that's on my iMac, so I can set up and have better ergonomics. Um, anyways, I kind of why was I mentioning this? Color-wise, oh yeah, so I tend to use the marker brush for textiles and clothing and whatnot, and often a lot of backgrounds. Whereas the people, I just do the flat color for skin and hair color and whatnot. So probably looks a little weird, but we call that style. To get these in one go. Quite the way I wanted that second line to go, but I'm just gonna leave it. Kind of does have that motion sense. And I think, well, I'll come back to the thinner line and I'll have to remember to put in like some little Christmas trees or something to make it clear what that it. I mean, it's kind of clear it's wrapping paper, but it's like my older brother and I every year around Christmas having lightsaber battles with the cardboard inserts. I don't know if wrapping paper still does, like the cardboard tube inside, but certainly in the 80s it did. So those became our sabers. So we would have Christmas time Star Wars battles with the wrapping paper tubes. I like to think that Ursula is keeping that tradition alive. And that gives a little definition to Ursula's hair. And we'll fatten up some of the outlines here as well. It's kind of good to break up these outlines. So, like leaving that gap where there's the thinner, you know, kind of gives more character for one thing. And I mean, it depends if you want it to look very graphic, like graphic designy, then you would probably but would have like the same uniform kind of outline. But kind of think breaking it up's a little bit more now. Painterly is probably not the right word for pen and ink, but you know what I mean. So now, you know what, let's go back to the dip pen for some really teeny tiny details. Let's make it snowman wrapping paper. Right. Try and get this so I don't have too much of a weird distortion here. So that is the very first of tonight's cartoons. And now let's get on with the next one, which I think is going to involve much fatter nibs. So, drop that one on the floor and probably regret it later because I'll usually come on at the end to show what I've done. Now, for this one, kind of going to be working with a much bigger nib here, but let's still do. Actually, we got to do Noah's hair, so we'll start with the medium nib and go forward. Now, this one, because of the scale, normally this would be a size where I would start putting in some outlining in the face, but I kind of want to avoid that. So we're going to remember that this is getting reduced quite a bit, so can't get too fancy. This for the anthology actually comes at the very end of the book where I'm going to have, the about the author and, you know, space to show my other projects, right? One of my other projects is Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat. Now, generally speaking, especially at the time, this first Noah anthology is covering comics actually from up to about 2 weeks before I started developing Ricky as a character, and Ricky has his own comics. So he is his own universe, right? Um, but I will be putting a page or two at the end to talk about other projects. And sometimes in my sketchbooks, I have Ricky and Noah interacting, and well, I was going to say they don't get along. Noah doesn't get along. Ricky would be perfectly happy to be friends. He doesn't know what's up with the weird neighbor. So, and in the current Noah storyline where we're meeting Ricky, it's kind of really unclear as to whether Ricky's actually real in the world or whether he's Ursula's imaginary friend. Um, Now, Noah is going to be meeting Ricky in about a week or so, but one of the things Noah's going to be thinking of is that he shouldn't have eaten his guitarist's brownies at um, the previous night's gig. So, it still leaves it open as to whether Ricky actually exists in the world of Noah's Archipelago, or whether he's an imaginary friend or who knows what. So, but in my sketchbooks, there's the running gag that Noah is not fond of the rat and thinks that the cartoonist really shouldn't waste time drawing rats. Meanwhile, Ricky thinks everybody loves rats. Because why wouldn't you? He's a rat. Mice, on the other hand, he understands why people wouldn't like mice. We'll outline the tendrils of hair and whatnot with a fatter nib, but so this is going to look a little weird for a few minutes. So we just fill in some random small details. And yeah, I'll use this nib for Noah being pissed. Just gonna fill in the you got any cookies here, and then I'll move to the bigger nib, and we'll end up coming back to this nib for inking Ricky. Just run out some of the extra ink, so it doesn't go to waste. Just thinking maybe I should go with an even fatter nib for nose outline, except I did that on last night's um, Miles Marv stream. Miles being the mouse man, who is Ricky's girlfriend's cousin. And when I used this nib for outlining Miles's face, it actually looked really bad. And it was about the same size. And now I got to redo that page. So let's err on the size of the sort of fat, but not extremely fat. Yeah, that works. It's all kind of about like proportionality too with the lines. So, even with the thick thin, there's a time to go super thick, and then there's a time to just go relatively thick. And I think this is a relatively thick kind of time. Now I may at the end, kind of like I went with this thicker nib to fatten up some of the line work in the other drawing, which was proportionally so much smaller. I'll probably take the real fat nib at the very end and give some extra thickness to some of these lines, but it's always best to sort of start thinner and fatten up after. Than to go all in extra thick and then realize, oh, that wasn't good. So, Also shows when to kind of use the fatter nib to give some more darkness in the hair because without the fatter outlines, they were kind of looking like, oh, that's enough differentiations. And then you put in the fatter outlines, and it's like, oh no, that all looks like the same. So let's get Noah's pissed off expression. Now this nib is a little clogged up, so we're getting some breaking in the lines. I'll hold that up so it's kind of obvious. Um, but that kind of works when Noah's pissed, right? Like, you know, just like nib is kind of dragging a little bit, which is adding making some areas a little like a little jerky. But again, that kind of works because he's furious that the rat has dared to speak to him. I think I may also kind of have a black outline kind of fading out as well, which kind of helps the message, so to speak. Kind of looks like Noah could use a haircut in this, but that's that's for his wife to lecture him about. So, anyways, that one's getting pretty clogged up. I'm not concerned about this becoming like a solid black, but in fact, sometimes when it's like messy like this, it kind of works better than like a flat black. Flat black can end up looking kind of neutral, and then whereas this can, the speed at which you move the pen, all that stuff kind of affects how it ends up looking. I know I've got a lot of glare on the wet ink right now, so it's not super obvious. I'm gonna fill in kind of closer to his hair with this nib, and then which also helps make his hair look fatter. And then we will go to the monster at the very end. Before I switch nibs to anything, I'm gonna put a little bit of shading in here. So that's going to go back into. I've got bowls of water just off of here, so that's what I'm doing with my pens in between. And let's go back to the thinner nib to work on Ricky. I got a whole box of, speaking of nibs, I ordered like a variety pack of like 30 or something on Amazon that just came today. But I'll have to muck around and see which ones I like better for which purposes. Oh, it looks very medieval, but we won't really get into those this stream, but perhaps future streams. So, time for the rat. See, I'm gonna have to adjust his eyes because it looks right now like he's looking behind Noah as opposed to at Noah. We'll get there in a second. See, now he's looking forward. I'm gonna go over Ricky's jacket with the fatter nib, but he's kind of like doing some like cross hatchy. It's not proper cross hatchy, but contour formy kind of hatching lines. Because then when we leave some gaps in the heavier black, these show through and they still kind of show the form. So that this is, the rounder part of Ricky's arm and his leather jacket, that sort of thing. Not strictly required, but it's kind of become something I do often enough. So I think I've commented on previous streams. This is a recycled Bristol board paper, and I do find this particular one gouges quite easily. So that I'm constantly getting little, I don't know if that show, yeah, probably not really. Um, I'm constantly getting little bits of paper fluff stuck in the tip of the nib. Well, it is what it is. We will not be buying any more of that particular paper. But, still can work. You just gotta be prepared for some frustration. Come back down here, but I'll get working higher up and moving over a little bit. So let's get the speech bubble. And a little bit more hair. Ricky chain smokes, which is kind of a bit of a part of his character. Not that we always see him with a cigarette, but see him often enough. Basically, if his mother isn't watching, he probably has a smoke with him. Sometimes even if she is watching. I don't know if it picks up in the camera, but there's an annoying little fungus gnat flying around here, getting in my face and close to the drawing now. That's probably because I have a whole bunch of houseplants around, but I also have several of those like yellow sticky traps inserted into the houseplants, but certain of the gnats have managed to outsmart those. And just be annoying. Hopefully it doesn't pick up on camera. might be time to. I found a recipe somewhere. I forget what it was, but it was like, here he is. Um, oh, I'm gonna have to blot that up because otherwise we are going to have all sorts of trouble. We may still have all sorts of trouble. Came out with way too much. Fortunately, capillary action will make some of it go away. Anyways, whatever. What was I saying was in the gnat killer? It's like small amount. I found the recipe on the internet, so I can find it again. But it's like you want apple cider vinegar because the smell attracts them. Then a tiny amount of sugar as well, also to attract them. But then you also put in a little bit, just the tiniest like drop of dish soap because that breaks the surface tension. And you put that in a tiny little bowl and they die in it. Haven't used it in a while, but I think it's probably time again. I changed what the this speech bubble said like 3 times, so it's a little messy, but and when I scan this, I'm going to be scanning this in black and white, so like all the it's a non-photo blue pencil underdrawing, and it just goes bye-bye. And if there's a little tiny gray hint of like where it's extra dark, where it doesn't go bye-bye, well, we would just make that disappear with the magic of Photoshop or Procreate, whichever I use for editing the scans. But yeah. Now, Ricky, of course, should know that Ursula, as an 8-year-old, is not the one who is the authority for whether it's okay to annoy the neighbors with a big, loud Friday night party, but Ursula told him it was perfectly okay. Presumably, she has also given a clause that it's okay so long as their DJ plays that Walk the Dinosaur song, every hour on the hour. Yeah, Ricky's probably fine with that. He don't mind that song. Noah, on the other hand, that just makes the whole thing worse. So, yeah, I think, was I going to go over with thinner? You know what? I think for the thin pen, we're good. Now, let's go for the real fat one. Or let's go for the medium fat one to darken in Ricky's jacket and whatnot. And then we will go after that with the big fat one to add some heft to Noah. So weird. This desk is like right by in a corner that has windows on both sides. And it is kind of weird to be streaming and it's not 100% pitch black out yet. But that's going to be reality. I mean, hey, given it another couple months, we'll have like weird sunbeams coming in the middle of the stream because they bounce off my neighbor's house. Be careful they don't smear the lettering because that's very wet. Sometimes with these big round ones, it almost works better to flip them upside down. Not always, of course, you're not supposed to use them that way, but if they're getting a little clogged, sometimes that works best. Soak. Switch the nibs out of this pen. Definitely getting dark now. Throw that into soak. And let's get the really fat one. So I had said in the video description that I was going to do some marker sketches for St. Paddy's Day at the end. We'll see. I should. But kind of depend how this goes. So we haven't done too much with this super fat nib, but we have definitely darkened in. I think I am going to add a little bit more heavy black right around, kind of almost like a, well, reverse halo, I guess, to really darken up along Noah's hairline. This top is going to get cropped out, so yeah, I think that's pretty good, and we will leave that one at that. So, still got a tiny bit of ink left, which I'm going to attempt to pour back in the bottle. Wish me luck. There's really no point in just washing down the sink. I got a bunch goobered on me, because I just dropped the whole shot glass into one of my bowls of water for cleaning. Okay, now let's grab the sketchbook. I'll set this aside, also on the ground. And, let's do at least one marker sketch of leprechauns. This is the book I have from previous Tuesdays when I was doing brainstorming and whatnot. Some of the bat rat stuff. Okay, so here we have the blank page. So it has been kind of, I'm just not going to have everything in, so I'll try and keep things in the middle. Has been a bit of a running gag, sort of, in the last couple months, just mentioned here and there about Ursula trying to catch a leprechaun. So, what happens if she actually meets one? Oops, that's Noah's hair. Well, the surprised look is very Noah. But let's assume this is something Ursula is doing on her own without her old man involved. Here. Looks like the leprechaun knows what Ursula's up to. He ain't having it. So, there we go. Usually a very quick and dirty coloring job, but that's what makes it a sketch, not a finished piece. Clearly, he's decided to be fairly camouflaged with the grass, but it didn't fool Ursula. She spotted him. Don't know if that picked up on the microphone, but it is my phone telling me, oh, it's time to hit the treadmill. Don't know if that's happening tonight. Anyways. Also, I thought I had that set for an 8:30 on the schedule, not right now, but whatever. Mm. You know, this is like the worst flesh color ever. Or I guess so it's great if you're drawing somebody who's like been sunburned to the point of being looking like a lobster. But we'll just use some little tiny touches to give a hint of sort of flesh color. That's one thing I gotta find is like a flesh. Actually, I think I had some somewhere. I think there was like a set Crayola made that was, assorted people colors. And I thought I got a couple on clearance at Michael's, but could I find them now? No. They got to be around somewhere, though. Now, there is a black marker in here somewhere. Is that it? No, it's dark blue. There it is. All right. Well, there we did get the one St. Patty's Day kind of cartoon done. Just put these aside. So there's Ursula. She has spotted this leprechaun. The leprechaun is not interested in being captured and put in a cage to fulfill Ursula's gold ambitions. So get a job, you lazy bu I'm not even gonna try and do an Irish accent. I'm just gonna sound bad if I do. Get a job, you lazy bum. I'll not give you so much as a speck of gold. That's what he says. And let's have one more look at the other two drawings we did today. So speaking of Ursula, there is the whole, well, not quite, but the whole of this version of the Thorson family. She does have two older brothers from Noah's first and second marriage. Um, but his marriage to Ruth, there's baby Valerie, there's Ursula, Noah about to get thwacked, and actually looks like he's about to get kicked in the balls too. Although I guess an infant, probably can't kick that hard, but still. And then Ruth is gonna go get her hair done and leave him to the mess with the kids. And then this was the other one for the very end where I'm plugging my other projects, and Noah's gonna be pissy about it. Ricky B, the rock and roll rat, saying, "Howdy, neighbor. You got any cookies? We's having a loud party Friday." Ursula says that's okay with her, and Noah's going to be growling. So, yeah, this is going at the end of the book. The only image I have left to draw for, well, technically two, but the only for the inside of the book that I have left is a self portrait for the About the Author page. I'm going to be drawing that actually tomorrow, not on stream, although I think I will film it because I might use the footage later on as like a, you know, underlay or whatever for something. And then I got to do after that, it's just the cover, which I'm going to do in Procreate, so not on stream. This, like I think I said earlier, the very front of the book has an epigraph, which is, if you open a book and then there's like a page that's blank except for having a quote of some sort. So there's two quotes about a man being a king in his own castle, or one's about a man being a king in his own castle, and then I forget the other quote exactly. I have it written down somewhere. Actually, if I wait a minute, I can probably pull it up in Scrivener, can't I? On the old laptop. So let's see here. File, open recent projects, anthology notes, to do epigraph. First quote is going to be from Goethe. I can never pronounce that, but the author who wrote, he's the one who wrote the thing about Mephistopheles, right? Anyways, he has a quote: "He is happiest, be he king or peasant, who finds peace in his home." So that'll go above this. Then we have this, and then at the bottom, a quote from James Monroe saying, "A king without power is an absurdity." So actually, that just reminded me of something, because what I was going to have that I completely forgot about until this moment is Noah wearing a crown, which is a bit of a recurring gag in some of the Noah things. So let's quickly do that, and we'll do that with the glass pen, just because that's the one that's the right size that hasn't been taken apart. So I think the motif of Noah wearing a crown only appears in this particular book once. And it's actually in the context of Noah talking about, well, it appears twice. Once where Noah's kind of daydreaming, and then the other time he's actually wearing one. But it's in the context of Noah talking about King Charles taking over from his mom when his mom passed away. And then the next cartoon is Noah wearing a plastic, like, dollar store kids dress up crown and hitting on Ruth. So, and then later on, I have other, yeah, that works. In the next Noah anthology, I think, is when I have a little storyline wherein Noah, in the week of his birthday, he goes around wearing a plastic crown. So the better to annoy the wife and kids. Um, and then it kind of became a running gag every year on his birthday in July that he would either be wearing a crown or Ruth will have hidden his crown, etc. So there we go. Now it fits the quotes about being a king. And when I make clips of this, I'll have to remember to go at the very end and put in the bit where I'm adding the crown. Actually, it probably doesn't matter for clips, but yeah. So that's what we did tonight in a little over 2 hours. So not bad, considering that I'm a little slow when I'm inking, and especially when I'm fighting with the nibs. But anyways, I hope you guys have all had a very happy St. Patrick's Day. And for streaming on this channel and whatnot, next stream is on Friday. I will be working on Rickaby, the Rock and Roll Rat, on his book Rickaby Goes to Sea. Try and get at least 2 pages done. Possibly 3. We'll see. But definitely I'll make sure I get 2 pages done. And then after that, Monday for Miles. And that will be the N is for spread. I haven't decided what's going in that one yet. And then, of course, next Tuesday, we will be inking again. And Last week I did thumbnails for a couple of live streams, like the Miles live stream and the Ricky live stream. I've already been using those. Next week we have 2 more live stream thumbnails to do. One is kind of a general one for Tuesday with, well, not all my characters, but my 4 main characters being put to work. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I will be starting a Noah stream in April. So then I have a thumbnail for the Noah stream. So next Tuesday we will be inking again. Anyways, thank you all for watching and hanging out with me, and we will catch you next time. Bye for now. Happy St. Paddy's Day. Go find your leprechaun and make him give you some gold.